This is a sensational story, and we've got a special discussion lined up right here on Business Tonight with a very special panel this evening. Dileep Padgaonkar, senior journalist, Siddharth Varadarajan, founding editor of The Wire, and Sanjeev Aga, corporate commentator. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for talking to us at ET Now, to analysing all that's unfolded over the last 24 hours and its impact on policy and politics indeed. But Mr. Padgaonkar, I'm going to start with you. Has there been a serious breach of propriety by External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, or an error of judgment when she lobbied for Lalit Modi's travel documents? What is your view?
There certainly has been a breach of propriety, and the breach of propriety is the manner in which she has explained her gesture. She says she tried to facilitate the travel papers for Lalit Modi out of humanitarian considerations. 2 points arise here. One is, what was the urgency of doing that, considering that his argument was that he needed to be, besides his wife, in Portugal in order to sign the consent papers for her surgical operation. But it's now clear that Portuguese law does not stipulate any such thing. There were various ways in which Lalit Modi could have given his consent. So I think the plea that he entered falls flat. Secondly, and more importantly, Mr. Modi is facing a criminal investigation in India. And because of that, was it wise, was it proper, was it appropriate for a senior minister of the government to intercede on his behalf? And of course, there is the other question of propriety, which is that the Indian High Commission in London was not kept in the loop in all these matters. She appealed directly to Keith Vaz, a Labour MP, who incidentally is already under a cloud, and then she spoke directly to the High Commissioner in Delhi. Now, bypassing your own mission is again, I think, a breach of protocol, if not entirely of propriety, but there it is. So there are a large number of unanswered questions about what has transpired, and I think in the days to come we'll need to unravel many of those issues.
That's a very fair point that you raised. There are many counts on which propriety has been breached, but so much has been said about propriety, and given her own arguments that are actually falling flat by every passing minute. Siddharth Varadarajan, is Sushma Swaraj today completely indefensible?
You know, I've been through them very carefully, and I think that one can pick massive holes in all the arguments that she has given through tweets over the last 24 hours, quite frankly. The claim of Lalit Modi having humanitarian reasons for traveling to Portugal, this was never confirmed or tested by Ms. Swaraj or the External Affairs Ministry, which has, you know, tremendous resources at its disposal to check out the hospital in Portugal, what, you know, the legal requirements for signing consent forms involve. No attempt was made to tell the British, in the event that a decision was taken to let him travel, that the travel document he is given is of a restricted duration. So it seems that, you know, Sushma Swaraj pulled out all the stops to help a man who she knew personally, who her daughter has represented in court. Perhaps her husband, I've heard this said, but I don't know if this is the case or not. Perhaps her husband has represented Mr. Modi in the past. So there is a relationship of some proximity between Sushma Swaraj and Lalit Modi, and above all, he was at that time and still is a fugitive from Indian law. So to circumvent established procedures in this way and to actively involve yourself in providing him relief, I think is something that's really quite unusual and quite, shall I say, irregular.
Right. Two views that clearly indicate that there has been a serious breach of propriety. Let's get in a non-political view. Sanjeev Aga, comment on that. What's your sense? Has there been a serious breach of propriety by Sushma Swaraj? How do you assess things?
Sandeep, at this moment, I think the question is not propriety. It is whether or not there is culpability. Propriety does matter. It would have mattered, say, a couple of years ago when she was the leader of the opposition and she was speaking against the IPL goings on. A disclosure might have been in order, and there may be nothing particularly wrong with a spouse having some professional relationship so long as it is disclosed and it is in the open. So those issues of propriety may have come up earlier. I certainly believe that after she became a minister in the Union Cabinet, her family members should have ceased any business dealings and should have made that public. But at this point of time, there are certain incidents which raise eyebrows. There are dots which may or may not add up to forming a picture. And I think at this point of time, talking of propriety amounts to putting a lid on whether or not there is culpability.
All right, so this isn't just about propriety, this is also about culpability. That's a valid point there. But Mr. Padgaonkar, if I may bring this debate back to you, does this raise a serious question on the disconnect that exists in New Delhi? You have the finance ministry that declares him an economic offender, issues a blue corner notice for Lalit Modi, and the Ministry of External Affairs is lobbying for his travel documents. I mean, what explains this absolute disconnect?
You know, it used to be said of Ronald Reagan that Reagan's right hand did not know what the right hand was doing, let alone the left one. And I'm afraid that in this case that seems to have been the case. I mean, I can't simply understand how someone as high profile as Lalit Modi, against whom the ED is investigating, that factor could not have been taken into account by the Minister of External Affairs when she chose to intercede on his behalf. So yes, there is a disconnect, and it's a very disquieting discontent precisely because of the gravity of the charges that stand against Mr. Lalit Modi.
Siddharth, she circumvented procedure then, but do you believe, given all the high decibel drama and high decibel accusations that are now finding some ground of reality there, she should now step aside? Or is it perhaps time for the Prime Minister to step in? He's been very, very silent so far. Some people beginning to question that as well.
No, I think that the stand of the BJP and the RSS is very clear, right? When we saw on Sunday itself, fairly early in the day, Mr. Amit Shah addressing television cameras, and then shortly after that Rajnath Singh mounting a very strong and vigorous defense of Sushma Swaraj. It's clear that Prime Minister Modi has taken a strategic decision that whatever the rights or wrongs of this case, he does not want his government to be embroiled in a scandal that will require a minister to be sacrificed. So I think that he is battening down the hatches and will try to brazen out this storm, hoping that it blows over. My sense is that the facts of the case are really so stark and so controversial that Modi might well have picked the wrong battle on which to try to stand his ground. I think that the more the details emerge in this case, the harder it will be to sustain the view that what the External Affairs Minister did, and by extension what the Modi government has done, is justified or somehow a defensible act.
Fair enough. Sanjeev Aga, what explains then the silence of the Prime Minister? No political compulsions, unlike in the UPA, Is it because he's trying to gauge the public mood before taking a final call? What explains the silence, according to you?
In the UPA was a very different kettle of fish, and in fact, an otherwise honorable person has already paid a very heavy price in terms of, historical judgment as to how he did justice to the people of India when he was holding the highest position. But in this case, I don't know. As such, if a Prime Minister takes 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours to find out everything, and I am assuming, again going on a normative basis, that he did not know anything. That assumption may not be correct, but I have to make that assumption. Then there is nothing wrong if he takes, for such a sensitive matter, he takes his time and does not, sort of prejudge the issue, does not react to just because the media is whipping it up or the opposition is whipping it up, and he does the right thing at the right time, and he doesn't try to put a lid on. If something is wrong, it should be completely uncovered, and every last person should be booked. In that context, again, I come back to, propriety is neither here nor there. It is for us to determine whether there is culpability or there is no culpability.
Okay, let's talk about the impact of this scandal. It's without a doubt, Dileep Padgaonkar, that this is the biggest scandal to have hit the Modi government in its first 13, 14 months in office. How big a blow is this going to be for Narendra Modi?
Well, listen, it is certainly going to dent the image of the government, because the fact is, I mean, look, I told you, her argument is that she did all this out of humanitarian considerations, but then there are members of her cabinet, there are members of her party, there are members of her extended ideological fraternity who also said that she acted out of nationalist ardor. Now, this is extremely odd, because had she really acted out of nationalist ardor, the thing to do would have been to ask Lalit Modi to return to India and to face the courts, to participate actively in the investigation that the ED is considering. I mean, that would have served the nationalist cause, I think, much better than merely to say that she acted out of some kind of a nationalist ardor. I don't understand that at all.
All right, I don't understand that either, so that makes it the two of us. But Mr. Aga, this is a big scandal. This is one of the biggest controversies that have hit the Modi government, at least in its first 13 months in office. Do you believe it's going to take a toll on the image of this government? He spoke about the Achhe and the Bure Din, celebrating the first anniversary, and how it's going to be the end of the road as far as offenders were concerned.
It isn't as if this union cabinet and all the ministers of state were constituted of people who have never committed white-collar crime in their life. In fact, unfortunately, our Indian political system, it's difficult to find enough number of such people. But the belief was that after the swearing in, there would be no further, misdemeanor or wrongdoing of this kind. That was the belief, that whatever people may or may not have done in the past, nothing more is happening. Now, unfortunately, if this incident has happened, and it is wrong, and we don't know, but assuming for the moment that it is wrong, it pertains to July, August, then certainly it's happened during the new government's regime, and yes, it would certainly be a blot.
Siddharth Varadarajan, I'm going to have you the last one. I'm also going to put you the toughest question then. Do you believe, given the whole political storm around it, can Sushma Swaraj survive all of this, or will you believe the Prime Minister will sack her, will give her the marching orders? Given the high moral ground he's taken on all these issues repeatedly, he's talked about ending corruption. Is he going to be a silent spectator now?
You see, by having Rajnath Singh declare yesterday that the government fully stands behind Sushma, it becomes very hard for Mr. Modi to now jettison her. So I would rule out, as an analyst, Ms. Swaraj's resignation at this stage. It really seems quite unlikely, and that Mr. Modi and the government will be aggressive on this matter. I think they will not try to give the opposition any quarter, and they will try to brazen it out. So it really depends on how much staying power the story has. Perhaps some other news item comes along which diverts public attention. I think the government's media management strategy will be called into play at this point to somehow get the story off the headlines. I don't see Mr. Modi sacrificing Sushma Swaraj. Because for him to do that, having raised the stakes on Sunday by saying that we stand by her, would be to, essentially undermine this whole carefully constructed image of Achhe Din that he has tried to do over the last year, and specifically the last 1 month.
All right, if he acts, he's going to be in a tough spot. If he doesn't act, he'll probably be in a trickier spot, isn't it? Siddharth Varadarajan, Sanjeev Aga, Dileep Padgaonkar, thank you so much for joining in and putting it all in perspective for our viewers right here on Business Tonight.